Hi, welcome back. I decided to use a different 4.5. This is an old Stanley 4.5 that I restored. If you haven't seen my hand plane revival DVD, it walks you through the whole process. But I'll just tell you real quick. In order to put big thick blades, what we did is we added these little tabs on the underside so that when you put it together, the blade's already sharp. It's a 140 thousandths of an inch thick blade and 125 thou thick back iron. When you put the two together, those tabs reach down in between this in the long slot, and they make contact with this little short yoke that allows you to use that really thick blade. Otherwise, this is too short, and you can't use a blade more than about 95 thou thick. I've already cleaned the face of the frog. I cleaned the contact points underneath the frog. I opened up the throat to allow for the thicker blade, and I flattened the sole. This happens to be corrugated, which is no big deal, other than the fact that it means there's less metal to have to remove when you do the flattening. Right, so put that in place. Now I want to close that throat down. So what I'm going to do is advance that blade. I need my glasses. Oh, I can't see; it's all fogged up. Advance that blade until it sticks out. Okay, so you can see how open that throat is. So I want to close that down a fair bit. Jake, clean those up for me, would you please? So in order to do that, this is the imperfect part of the old Stanleys. Normally this setting is done, or on a bedrock anyway, it's done with the blade in place, but you have to take the blade out in order to do it on these, in order to get access to these screws. Now this screw in the back, as I turn it, it advances the frog forward, and the frog sits fairly sloppy in this position because it has a lot of lateral movement. So the best you can do is just put it in place and then eyeball it so that it appears to be parallel to the opening. I'm just going to hold it like so with my thumb. Alright, that blade's still way out. I'll retract it. I want to look at that. I want to close that down more. Thank you. So, take this out. Loosen these screws. Move this forward. I'm going to guess right about there. Oops. I'm going to move that up just a little bit. Make sure that's good and snug. Advance the blade. You tired, Frick?
A little bit.
That camera heavy?
It is after a while.
Okay. That'll work. If it, on a bedrock, I'd close that down. I'd cut that in half, but on this one, it's too much fussing, so I'll work with it right there. And I'll put that lever cap in. No, that wasn't, it was sitting on a bump or something. Snug that up. That appears to be good. Okay, now flip it over. Get the blade parallel to the sole. Retract it fully. Wax. And then we'll go to work on this. The blade is still out a little bit. Now, I just want to get rid of that rough texture left from planing across the grain. Okay, that's not quite tight enough. Okay, first thing I want to do is make sure that blade is parallel. There it is. I knew that because the shaving coming off was uniform thickness across its width. Looking for pencil line now that's left. Remember, at the end of your stroke, if you don't lift the plane off, you'll be left with a, you know, I showed you earlier where shaving is stuck there. Doesn't want to stay put. The blade keeps advancing on me. Jake gone to work?
Yep.
Now this is quite torn, but I don't think I can take enough off to make much of a difference. At least get it smooth to the touch though. Now I'm just feeling for any irregularities. Okay. Now you can see a torn area. It's really bad right there. But it's in the middle of my bench. I don't want to create a hollow to get rid of it, so I'm just going to have to live with it. The way I make benches now, I avoid problems like that, because instead of using one wide piece, I use several pieces that are glued face to face, and I pre-plane them before I assemble them so that I know which way the grain is running exactly. And I index them with 2 splines so that when you assemble it, just a couple of minutes with a smooth plane and it's done, because I've pre-planed each of the pieces before I glued it together. Makes a much easier job of getting your bench top nice and smooth. Okay. Now, like I said, there's No oil, no sanding on this because I don't want grit on my bench for the next time I have to do this in hopefully 10 years. Now I use a tung oil that I cut with mineral spirits just to slow the drying down. That way, when I'm doing a big surface like this, I don't have the finish getting tacky on me on one end before I finished applying the oil on the other end. I'm just going to put this vise back in. I've got leather on the jaws and I don't want oil all over that, so I'll open up the vise. And I'm not going to bother putting oil over the entire bench, just on the top part that we've worked on. Open this one up as well. Okay, so I need a brush. I need some oil, I need a container to mix with, and some rags. So I'm going to gather that up. I want to keep the film rolling, so we're actually going to stop here and we'll pick it up again in a minute as soon as I get that stuff, okay?